Tax has become the defining issue in this primary and in North Carolina. You and Senator McCain called for suspending the 18.4-cent federal gas tax. Senator Obama calls it a gimmick. He says it's pandering. He says it won't really bring any help to consumers. What's your response? He says you're not being truthful.
What I proposed is that the oil companies pay the gas tax instead of consumers and drivers this summer. Now, but this gas tax issue, to me, is very real because I am meeting people across Indiana and North Carolina who drive for a living, who commute long distances, who would save money if the oil companies paid this $8 billion this summer instead of it coming out of the pockets of consumers.
Economists say that's not going to happen. They say this is going to go straight into the profits of the oil companies. They're not going to actually lower their prices. And the two top leaders in the House are against it. Nearly every editorial board and economist in the country has come out against it. Even a supporter of yours, Paul Krugman of the New York Times, calls it pointless and disappointing. Can you name one economist, a credible economist, who supports this suspension?
Well, you know, George, I think we've been, for the last 7 years, seeing a tremendous amount of government power and elite opinion basically behind policies that haven't worked well for the middle class and hardworking Americans. From the moment I started this campaign, I've said that I am absolutely determined that we're going to reverse the trends that have been going on in our government and in our political system.
Can you name an economist who thinks this makes sense?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to put my lot in with economists because I know if we did it right, if we actually did it right, if we had a president who used all the tools of the presidency, we would design it in such a way that it would be implemented effectively. Now,
why are you against giving taxpayers in Indiana, North Carolina, a relief from the federal gasoline tax this summer?
You're right, Tim. This defines, I think, the difference between myself and Senator Clinton. This gas tax, which was first proposed by John McCain and then quickly adopted by Senator Clinton, is a classic Washington gimmick. It is a political response to a serious problem that we have neglected for decades. Now, here's the upshot. You're looking at suspending a gas tax for 3 months. The average driver would save 30 cents per day for a grand total of $28. That's assuming that the oil companies don't step in and raise prices by the same amount that the tax has been reduced. And by the way, I have some experience on this because in Illinois, we tried this when I was in the state legislature, and that's exactly what happened. The oil companies, the retailers, were the ones who ended up benefiting.
You voted for it. So
I did, exactly.
When gas is only $2 a gallon?
And that's my point. I voted for it, and then 6 months later, we took a look, and consumers had not benefited at all. But we had lost revenue.
So you learned from a wrong vote.
I learned from a mistake. And in addition, what happens is that this would come out of the Federal Highway Fund that we use to rebuild our roads and our bridges. And if we don't have that fund, then we're looking at thousands of jobs being lost in Indiana and in North Carolina. Now, Senator Clinton says that she's going to use the windfall profits tax to fill it. First of all, she's already said that she's going to use the windfall profits tax for something else, as I have, and that is to invest in clean energy and other important measures. So that money she's already spending twice. More importantly, nobody thinks that George Bush is actually going to spend or is actually going to sign a law for windfall profits taxes. So that's not going to happen this summer. So what this is a strategy to get through the next election. And Senator Clinton's own staff told the Washington Post, we don't think this is really going to go anywhere. We don't think it's going to work, but we think it's a good issue to use in a campaign. And that's what Washington does. We don't deal with the serious issues that are in front of us. We try to figure out what's going to poll well and what can we do to get through the next election. And what I've said is, look, people do need serious relief. They are getting hammered. I meet people who can't go on job searches because they can't fill up their gas tank. And so what I've said is, let's accelerate the second half of a tax stimulus proposal that I had put forward that would put immediately hundreds of dollars into people's pockets to get through the summer. Let's pass a permanent middle-class tax cut, $1,000 per family to offset the payroll tax, to deal not just with rising costs of gas, but also rising costs of food, rising costs of prescription drugs. And most importantly, let's invest in alternative fuels, raising fuel efficiency standards on cars, and let's get serious about reducing consumption of oil, which is the only way that over the long term we're going to reduce gas prices. And you know, I have to say that if Senator Clinton or John McCain had stood up in previous years for increases in fuel efficiency standards, in getting serious about an energy policy that is freeing ourselves from dependence on foreign oil, then we would not be in the same situation in the first place. And I don't want 20 years from now to have a bunch of politicians proposing a suspension of the gas tax holiday when gas is $8 or $10 a gallon because we failed to act now. Now's the time for us to act, and I think the people of Indiana and North Carolina understand that.
It's a pander?
Yes.